Good evening, everyone. It is 6 o'clock according to the clock on the wall. I'd like to call the regular meeting for Tuesday, March 9th of Suffolk County Council to order. Ms. V, would you please give us an invocation? Let us all stand and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Let us pray. Dear kind Heavenly Father, we thank you for being the one in whom we live, move, and have our being. We acknowledge you as the ruler of the universe, and we know that it is in you that we live and move and have our being. We thank you for bringing us together again to discuss the business that is placed before us. We invite your presence and ask that you help us to make the decisions that are pleasing in your sight. Bless everyone under the sound of my voice. Help us to be able to live in peace and harmony and love, and just bless this whole nation from the federal government all the way down to local government. Help us to realize that we can do nothing without you. It is in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Branning, are there any changes to the agenda?
No changes to the agenda.
I entertain a motion for approval.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Bacon, seconded by Mr. Baker. Any discussion? All in favor? Your agenda is approved. We have a motion to accept the minutes as amended by the change that Ms. Blanding sent out to us for the rest. Second. Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the minutes for our regular meeting for Tuesday, February 23rd. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Okay. Land use matters, Ms. Rubin.
Good evening. Helen Rickman for planning staff. Our first item is RZ 2101 at 1335 Camden Highway. Our applicants are Renato C. Delbeni and Jay Davis, who are both authorized agents. The request is to rezone approximately 6.4 acres of property from residential 9 to general commercial in proximity to Camden Highway, Jefferson Road, and Herman Street. This is the extent of the property in question. Herman Street is actually the unbuilt right-of-way that you see between the two pieces. The eastern side of the property is zoned R9, and so is the western side. It is currently wooded with the exception of the most northern piece running on Camden Highway. There is a house on that property. One of the applicants does intend to convert that house from a residential use to a real estate office should this property be successfully rezoned. As it sits today, it is on residential 9. It is adjacent to general commercial zoning on Camden Highway, which is an arterial roadway. These properties are under two separate ownerships. So the 0.53 acre piece, which is the part that Mr. Delveni wants to rezone, would be where the real estate office and associated property would be located. The larger 5.84 acres is that larger chunk to the south and east of the property that is being represented by Jay Davis. This request, as I said, is to deal with rezoning of it for a residential building to be converted into a real estate office. The remainder of the property is a speculative rezoning at this point in time in order for them to obtain proximity to existing general commercial zoning. Under the 2040 land use plan, this is in the suburban development planning area where we scrutinize and manage existing patterns of development where we look at form and design as a primary focus. This district is supportive of commercial rezoning where it makes sense on primary corridors such as Camden Highway. This is how the site looks today. What you're seeing is the Camden Highway facing south, looking towards town on the left side of the pic screen, and then on the right side is looking to the west. This is the unbuilt Herman Street right-of-way that you see towards the back of the property off of Jefferson Road. It's never been constructed today. Planning Commission reviewed this request, and they're actually recommending that the property be rezoned to general commercial on the pieces that are directly fronting on Camden Highway, but the remaining balance of the property remain R9. That would result in approximately 4.63 acres of property being rezoned. It is along a major arterial roadway, near a major intersection, and it does make a complete commercial block. They are not supportive of general commercial on the back piece of 1.77 acres that abuts the R9 zoning and the Herman Street right of way. You may have.
Is the applicant okay with that?
It is my understanding that Jay Davis, who is the representative for that particular property owner, has no issues with this.
And that was my question as well. Is the applicant present?
Mr. Davis is not here, but I anticipate that he will be here at the public hearing.
So Mr. Davis has the back part of it.
He has the larger tract, yes.
Who has the 1.77 acres?
Jay Davis is representing that property owner.
Yeah, I move for first reading.
Second.
Who actually owns the Herman Street?
It's an unconstructed city right away from what I understand.
Well, we were planning, they said it was a paper street or something.
It shows up in the system when you click on it as being city, but it's never constructed, so technically it is a paper street.
But the city owns it, somebody owns it.
It's probably the city's right away, yes.
That was a motion.
Any other questions? Can we restate the motion? Who makes the motion?
I made the motion.
Second. Mr. Baker's made the motion, Mr. Eden second. Okay, Ms. Vivian second. But this is for Ms. Blandy. So
This is to rezone 4.63.
any further discussion? It's been moved and properly seconded. All in favor? First reading. All opposed. RZ 2102.
RZ 2102 is at 5333 Edge Hill Road. This is a county request. The property is being represented by Stephen Dickens as the authorized agent. It is to rezone approximately 0.91 acres of land from agricultural conservation to general commercial on Edge Hill Road. This property is just east of or west of the intersection of Edge Hill and Peach Orchard Road, adjacent to Shaw Air Force Base. It does abut commercial zoning immediately to the east. This property is being rezoned for speculative reasons to increase the property value of the particular tract. It's up for sale. And so just to kind of orient you, the property to the immediate north of it is currently undeveloped and likely will remain that way. It belongs to the Korean church. And then the property immediately to the west of it is residential, and it abuts a daycare property to the east. When we look at the comprehensive plan, it is in the military protection planning area, so the MPA is supportive of a rezoning that will put the property into a commercial designation that removes the entitlement for mobile homes. In this particular instance, we are supportive of that from the comp plan standpoint. The property is itself today, it does have a structure on it. The status of it, whether it's usable, is questionable. However, it is developable at the size and scale that it exists in. And this is what it looks like today. Planning Commission actually recommends rezoning this from general commercial to limited commercial, primarily because in the general commercial zoning district, residential uses are by right permitted uses. In the limited commercial district, they're actually conditional uses. Also, it's more of a transitional zone from general commercial to that agricultural use to the east or to the west. It has a house on it. And for that reason, we're supportive of limited commercial designation versus general commercial. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. It was my understanding that Mr. Dinkins was approached about this recommendation for limited commercial. I don't know for a fact that we have anything in writing that says that they support that.
Move approval first reading.
Second.
For general commercial or limited commercial?
Well, they got limited commercial.
General commercial, I'm going by this right here. We'll still have a second public hearing.
I guess if Dinkins doesn't want it, limited, he come back and ask for general.
I'm going by what his motion is for general.
No, ours, is it general?
For this, what was that over here?
So the Planning Commission's recommendation is to rezone it to limited commercial. The applicant requested general commercial.
And I understand planning's concerns as far as the step down.
Yes.
And jumping straight to general commercial. The limited commercial would be a step down because you got a bird.
So it's a motion to approve limited commercial, Mr. Baker?
I didn't make the motion, I second.
He seconded. As it's written.
We'll go as written and then we'll see next week if the applicant has an issue with it being limited commercial.
Okay, any other discussion?
Has the developer met with the community, Mr. Chairman?
Is he what?
I'm not certain whether Mr. Dinkins has reached out to the community or not, but we did mail public meeting notices for the 23rd meeting. And so the public has been notified and the property has been posted and they will come to the public hearing.
Will you contact him to see if, or
I can reach out directly to
you
Mr.
reach out to
Dinkins
him
and
and see
discuss
if
this.
limited
Yes.
would be all right?
Yes, sir.
Any other discussion? It's been moved and seconded that we approve first reading. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Mr. Bacon opposes. RZ 2103.
RZ 2103 is at 419 North Pike East. The applicants are Renee and John Bittner as authorized agents for the property. This is to rezone approximately 2.57 acres from general commercial to light industrial warehouse. This is a property in question. It's previously developed. Currently, it is zoned general commercial, but it is adjacent to light industrial warehouse zoning. Historically, the property was used for an LIW use, but in 1999, when countywide rezoning went through, it got zoned general commercial. Because the previous use has been closed for a significant amount of time, in order to establish the future use, which does fall under LIW, they do have to pursue a rezoning on the property. There is an existing building on the parcel, and it does have warehouse on it. It is influenced by the suburban development planning area as well as conservation preservation. Normally, in the CP planning area, we wouldn't encourage rezoning a property to a higher intensive use. However, this property is previously developed, it's already fully built out, and the proposed future end user will not be altering that condition. This is how the property is today. You have a fairly large warehouse building to the back with a small office space, and then a significant area of pavement where there's maneuvering area and parking. This is what the property looks like from the road level. Planning Commission does recommend approval of this request. It is adjacent to LIW zoning to the east. It is located on a primary frontage, so the use of light industrial in this particular location is supported by the plan. Happy to answer any questions that you have.
Questions from this room?
Move for approval.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded that we approve first reading for RZ 2103. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, RZ 2103 is approved. Ordinance Amendment 2102.
You may recall this request was before you at the last meeting. This is to establish a new zone within the airfield compatibility district that we're calling the density development zone, or the development density zone. This would primarily amend Article 3, Section R with the airfield compatibility district, as well as a few other small sections in the ordinance to circle people back to this particular portion of the regulations. In December of 2019, we adopted our 2040 comprehensive plan, and one of those overarching goals was to protect Shaw Air Force Base and Point Set Electronic Combat Range, including its facilities, from incompatible and unwanted uses. Additionally, the boundaries of the MPA were evaluated based on the Joint Land Use Study recommendations. In 2016, the Joint Land Use Study supported development at 1 unit per acre in the areas impacted by military operations outside of the clear zone and the accident potential zones, which are locations designated in the Joint Land Use Study. Currently, in our agricultural conservation zoning district, although we do allow 1 acre lot minimum and require that, our current development standards do allow lots to be created in the AC district that give, at the street level, more of a suburban level development. Pardon me, I'm losing my voice. Pictographically speaking, with our current development standards in place outside of the APZs, you can develop a subdivision with 1 acre lots that are much narrower and deeper, so that at the street level, you end up with a density that looks much more like an R15 neighborhood. In this scenario, we have 100-foot wide lots, which is R15 lot widths, developed in accordance with the AC standards, and you fundamentally end up with 14 dwelling units within 700 linear feet, which is approximately 2 dwelling units per 100 linear feet. Currently, the airfield compatibility district is what you see here today. We have the clear zone, which is green, on both ends of the runway, and then the APZ 1 and 2, which prohibit residential development. But outside of that APZ 2, there's no prohibitions of development, and there's no additional regulatory standards. When you look at the size and extent of the military protection planning area, it extends far beyond that APZ length and the center lines of the runway. So part of this is looking at further protection along the runway center lines. Our proposed ordinance language would look at amending 3R2 to add the DDZ. We would look at amending minimum lot widths in the AC district to 220 feet. And we would look at amending setbacks, thank you so much, to 50-foot side and rear setbacks to further push buildings away from each other. We would also look at adding additional language in the ACD regulations specifically to the DDZ, as well as amending development standards in the AC district to say that if you're in the DDZ, you have additional regulatory standards that you need to circle back to. Fundamentally, this would create a map that looks like this. You see this yellow area on both ends of the APZ, that would be your new density dispersion zone. It impacts approximately 200 properties. We have noticed all of those property owners about the public hearing. They received notification. I know they've received it in the last 24 hours because I've answered phone calls from a couple of people and provided them information. And these areas go to the ends of the MPA, their military protection area. In practicality, what does that look like? You end up with a development pattern that looks more like this, and it is to scale. 220 foot by 198 feet lots, where you're pushing houses further away from each other. The goal and the intent of this is so that we really are getting true 1 unit per acre development, so that we do have houses further apart from each other in the event that there is an airplane or an aircraft failure in the proximity of the development. Planning Commission does recommend approval of this. We do believe that it's appropriate to enact this local regulation. It is more stringent than the development standards outside of the APZ 2, or it's more stringent than outside of the regular AC district, but it is less stringent than the APZs. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Yeah, you said 200 property owners.
Yes, sir.
Property owners or
Properties.
You know how many owners?
About 198.
It's about.
And now, one thing that I didn't mention, but it is in the staff report, is that we're proposing that these amendments only apply to lots that are created after the adoption date of this standard. So if the parcel already exists today, if it was platted prior to third reading, then they develop with the regular AC standards, so they're not having new regulations placed upon them. But if a new developer came in or a new subdivider came in within this area, then the newly created lot would have to abide by these standards.
You find out how many that would affect now? What do you know?
Right now, it would affect none because it depends on if somebody were to subdivide a tract of land. So unless somebody comes in to develop a parcel, it's not going to impact them at all.
I'm one of them. It affects my farm.
Yeah.
But I'll move for second reading. I thought we were on second.
This is second reading.
We voted on it.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and properly seconded that we have second reading on OA 2101.
I'm sorry, I got out of order in my presentation. I apologize.
Yeah. So we're on 2101, right?
We are, sir.
Okay. Any further discussion? It's been moved and properly seconded that we approve ordinance number 2101 for second reading.
Correct.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Truman, are you gonna go back to the first reading?
It's 2102 is actually the next in my alignment. I apologize. I didn't realize they were in the wrong order. So OA 2102 is zoning districts establishments, establishes freestanding zoning district areas. The applicant is Greg Future, Coastal Development Partners. This request is actually to amend the zoning ordinance standards in Article 2, Section 2A1 and 2A2 to allow for the establishment of smaller minimum freestanding zoning areas when that area consists entirely of land zoned neighborhood commercial. It also makes some other minor adjustments to clerical issues and inconsistencies that we found in that section of the ordinance. Currently, freestanding zoning areas are defined as being areas where common types of zoning are contiguous. Commercial is laid out as general commercial, limited commercial, neighborhood commercial, and professional office. Then we have industrial, residential, planned development, agricultural, and conservation preservation. In the current zoning ordinance, the minimum freestanding area for zoning is 2 acres. In this particular request, the applicant is requesting to modify that minimum standalone area from 2 acres to 1.5 acres only for neighborhood commercial zoning. Primarily, this comes out of the fact that in our more rural areas of the community where we want to have neighborhood supporting development, where it is predominantly agricultural zoning, we have recently done some ordinance amendments at the county level that allow general merchandise stores of a certain size in the neighborhood commercial zoning district and limited commercial zoning district as conditional uses. This particular request is to allow the property to be a minimum of 1.5 acres only for neighborhood commercial, because the goal is to rezone the smallest amount of property possible in an agricultural area to serve the neighborhood without creating excessive zoning areas that are unnecessary. Staff does find that spot zoning is defined by the Supreme Court as the process of singling out a small parcel of land for a use classification that's totally different from the surrounding uses that benefits the owners to the detriment of other owners. However, planning law does not provide any minimum increment or requirement for a freestanding zoning area, so we can establish it at the local level. The Municipal Association further suggests that small areas may be rezoned, provided that the action is not arbitrary or unreasonable, which is why we're looking at what our comp plan supports, which is in our rural communities, putting commercial uses at crossroads that are neighborhood supporting, which is what the neighborhood commercial zoning district is meant to do. So in action, what this does is it amends Article 2, Section 2A1 to make revisions and additions to establish the zoning districts consistent with those that are described in Article 3. So we have some typographical errors that we're fixing. And then to add a section in 2A2 that allows the minimum size of a freestanding zoning area that is entirely neighborhood commercial to be a minimum of 1.5 acres. Planning Commission did recommend approval of this request. It would only be applicable to the NC district. It is intended to meet commercial and service needs generated by nearby residential uses. Users in the neighborhood commercial district are actually intended to be smaller, generally more compatible with residential development. We have large portions of the unincorporated areas of the county where going to a full 2 acres of commercial zoning really doesn't make sense because the footprint of what would be constructed there won't use the full acreage. I am happy to answer any questions that you may have.
For approval.
Second.
We moved to properly seconded, and this is first reading.
Yes, I apologize for that.
That's all right, no problem. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approving first reading of OA 2102, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. First reading is approved. Thank you, Ms. Rubin. Business, Mr. Bryan, ordinance 21-945, third reading.
Mr. Chairman of the Council, 21-945 has a deadline for renewing a business license from March 15th to May 1st. No changes in second reading.
Move for approval.
Second.
Been moved and properly seconded that we have third reading on ordinance 21-945. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed. Third reading ordinance 21-947.
Mr. Chairman of the Council, 21-947 is an ordinance to approve the restrictive covenants to be placed on the Pocatello East Industrial Park to make the park property more desirable for trapping industries.
Move for approval.
Second.
Been moved and properly seconded that we have third reading of ordinance 21-947. All in favor? Okay. The Fiscal Tax and Property Committee did meet. All committee members were held. We've got 3 motions and seconds that came out of committee. The first motion and second is to use $150,000 from the hospitality fund for a joint city, state, county project out at Patriot Park. All in favor?
Can you call for discussion first, please?
We have a second.
Yes, please. Okay, in committee, Mr. Chairman, and I didn't say anything, but all the thoughts were there. And of course, you know, it's a great opportunity to have a joint funding of something of that caliber, and it's really beautiful. And I'm in full support of it because it really enhances the quality of life for all of Sumter. And I'm saying what I'm saying is for the rural sections of the county. I realize that the source of the funds will be coming from the hospitality funds, and very seldom do we ever allocate anything from the hospitality funds to the rural areas of the county. And you know, when we ask for something, you know, those areas get really they don't get very much attention. However, I do acknowledge that Patriot Park has the whole county's access to it. It has access to it, and it's a beautiful place, and it's a plus for Sumter. And I just want to let it be on record that we would like to also, you know, think about enhancing some of the facilities out in the rural areas so that those kids who will never come to Patriot Sportsplex be able to have nice facilities as well. You know, it would be foolish for us to not do something like that when you've got the legislative delegation supporting it, the city supporting it, and of course, but I still want to go on record as saying, let's also think about the rural areas to enhance their facilities as well.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I would like to be heard. Last week, Mr. Chairman, County Council District 1 used the Rafton Creek Community Center to disperse 1,100 boxes of food to residents in District 1 who have food scarcity. And I must tell you that I was embarrassed by the condition of the community center. The corners of the community center are rotting. The entrance where you go to the back, you cannot use. And it is absolutely embarrassing. And I'm amazed that we're talking about upgrading a park that is in pristine position. And for that matter, I will not be able to support this issue. And as a matter of fact, let me go a step further and share with this council that as a result of the event that we did last week for the community, several constituents from all of your districts, except Mr. Edens, have contacted me. They contacted me about the food program. They contacted me about roads. They contacted me about litter. They even asked to be on my email list. And they've asked me what we're going to do about litter. They even raised the issue that came up last week or 2 weeks ago, where we discussed the Sheriff's Advisory Board being a part of the litter committee. And at that time, I was told that the sheriff had a pick. And the sheriff's department will, of course, pick the litter deputy, which means the Sheriff's Advisory Board was not selected to participate in a problem that is countywide. And bad, very bad. I have several articles here sent to the item that outlines that. I'm not sure why we thought it wasn't a good idea to include the Sheriff's Advisory Committee. Obviously, somebody has a plan. But I would like to say to you, Mr. Chairman, that I will be proposing a plan to address litter. And I would also encourage this body to consider the other areas besides the areas on Patriot Parkway. When we are co-joining forces with the city and the state, I understand there's some state money involved in that. State money was involved in the tennis center, $2 million. I think that's in the same general area. And part of the reason that we are here, in fact, the main reason that we are here is to address basic services. And so I don't understand how we can take on a project like this when we have some community centers that are not up to standard. I'll have more to say about this later. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your time.
Mr. Washington, first of all, I agree with you about the rural parks, if you will. But I have not heard of any rural council person bringing to the proper committee or bringing to council any request for projects to improve those parks. All you have to do, Mr. Washington, as a council member of your district, if you've got a request, bring it to the administrator. And you will put it on the proper committee and we'll discuss that. And if it needs to be fixed, we will fix it. But no one has brought forth any requests to improve any rural parks. So this request that we have a motion and a second for is for a joint park, as you stated, and that's what we're voting on. And these other items, the litter and all of that, has nothing to do with this motion. I agree with you about the litter. I agree with you about the parks, but now's not the time to bring that forward.
Mr. Chairman, with all due respect, all of these issues are tied together under basic services. And what my constituents tell me is that they are not getting basic services. And they are not getting, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, they are not getting their fair share, and they're upset about it. As a matter of fact, not only my area, your area, I've gotten calls from folks in your area, Mr. Bird's area, Mr. Baker's area, Ms. McGaney's area, and Mr. Baker's.
And that's when you should send them to us, out of, just out of
Thank you.
courtesy.
I have absolutely directed them to you. They chose to communicate with me because I'm the person talking about it. And I'm sure they would be happy to have conversation with you all.
If any of my constituents in my area, if they come to you, I'm always open to everybody, and I would do the same loyalty and courtesy if someone comes to me from your area.
I understand that, Ms. McGaney, and thank you for that comment, but you can check my Facebook, the comments are there.
We've got a motion and a second on the floor for, as I stated, using $150,000 from the hospitality fund for a joint project with the city, the state, and the county for park improvement. The second that came out of the fiscal tax and property committee meeting was to use $8,855 from the infrastructure fund to replace railroad ties at our siding. We have a motion and a second. All in favor? All opposed? Motion is approved. The third and final motion and second that came out of committee was to accept offer to purchase property on Brewington Road. All in favor? All opposed? Okay. Monthly reports. Ms. Bland.
We do have in council's packet is the COVID update, and I'll get that to you in just a minute. It wouldn't load up a few seconds ago, but I'll have it and I'll publish it for you. The other thing is the ethics report is due March the 30th. That's it. Please get it in on or before March the 30th. If you need any additional information from me, just let me know and I'll get it to you. That's it.
County Administrator's report, Mr. Nixon.
Mr. Chair, no report this evening.
Okay, I'm sorry, I skipped over one before I got to you. Any report from council members?
Chairman, I would hold my comments when we get to the report on the COVID-19 cases in death.
It's in the packet, so if you're gonna say anything, Mr. Baker, now's the time to do it.
Well, okay, everyone here don't have access to the packet, audience, so. As you know, I'm very concerned about veterans, as not only just veterans, but everyone in the community. We have 9,631 confirmed cases of COVID-19. Out of that, we have 175 deaths. But the thing about it is that I'm looking at the number of veterans that are dying. And I look at my source as the Sumter item obituary. And from December the 8th to March the 9th, there have been 71 veterans that have been identified in the obituary as dying. So there's 71 deaths in just 92 days. But when I was looking at the number of veterans that are dying, in 1 month, on February the 9th to March the 9th, the death went up from 47 to 71. There were 24 increases in death from veterans in 1 month. But let me say this, because this is coming up on the news and people are talking about it, and it's the military veterans that are committing suicide. And it is estimated that more than 20 veterans die by suicide every day. Many veterans commit suicide as a result of mental illness, including PTSD, which is post-traumatic stress disorder. PTSD is a disorder which a person has difficulty recovering after experiencing or witnessing a terrifying event. The condition may last months or years in my case, with triggers can be brought about by memories of the trauma accompanied by intense emotional and physical reaction. The impact of COVID-19 pandemic has triggered many memories of PTSD events that are experienced by veterans resulting from service in Vietnam. So again, I want this body, when it comes up for increase in personnel, to our Veteran Affairs Office so that we can make sure that we process all of the cases in a timely manner and not have veterans sitting back waiting to get services that they should get as a result of their service in defense of this country. So I'm just asking, and I will keep bringing up and impacting on what veterans are going through, so that when we get to that process, that it shouldn't be any hesitation about giving the Veteran Affairs Office increased personnel so that they can meet the demand of the many veterans in Sumter County. And we got to realize that Sumter County, by population, has a greater demand of veterans than any other county in the state. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate the opportunity.
Any other comments?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make one comment. Nothing to do with Mr. Bacon, but I just want to go back to Mr. Washington when he said that. I know that Rafton Creek Community Center, and I think it's probably 22 years ago, was the first community center we put out in the rural area, and it's probably 22 years old at least. So there's probably some, it wasn't built near as nice as our newer ones with bricks and everything. So it probably does need to be addressed. Let's look at it. But it was the first community center we put in this county out there. Just want to make that comment.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to be heard. Councilman Dazel, thank you for those comments. I appreciate that. I wanted to piggyback just a little bit on Councilman Bacon's comment, because I have been following and researching the veterans situation, and I am aware that there were 3,000 veterans last year who did not get service. And my understanding is that it is a result of them not having the appropriate staffing level to manage the 3,000 veterans that did not get service. Again, this is a basic need. We have to address basic needs. And I'll even throw something else in. Those same veterans, a lot of those same veterans, I've been talking to, they have agreed they want to participate in the litter control program. They actually want to go out and pick up litter and help us address this issue. They're prideful people, and we ought to be taking care of them. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other comments from council? For the first time since the pandemic happened, we have now opening up public comment.
So I will now open the floor. Anyone wishing to address council, please come to the podium, state your name. Please address all comments to the chairman. Public comment is now open. Anyone wishing to speak to council? Seeing none, public comment is closed.
Move for adjournment.
Second.
I move to properly saying that we adjourn. All in favor?
Uh,
All opposed?